chair, party leader, Bowling, officers of the People's National Party, members of Parliament, candidates, Your Worship and your distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, last but obviously not least, comrades. A few weeks ago, I stepped out of the pavilion in Montego Bay. That was in response to an invitation from the Outreach Committee of Region 6. As you have heard, the purpose of the Outreach Commission, of which I was the founding chair, the purpose was to extend the party's span beyond its core membership. Please remember, we are the national party. I've been watching the sustained campaign to rewrite history and to denounce the exemplary record of the PNP during the decades of the 70s and the 90s. They have sought to demonize successive PNP administrations and to vilify its leaders, Comrade Manley, Comrade Miller, and in my case, because Mr. Percy had no mercy, their motive is clear. They want to falsify history and poison the minds of those in the electorate who are not aware of what happened and when, and who have made the effort to learn. Father, as far as familiar with that portion of the scripture, it says, to everything there's a time and a season. Kind come to set the record straight. Time come to remind your neighbor of our memorable accomplishments, lest we forget. Those of you who know me realize that personal attacks or abuse have never prevented me from doing what duty demands, or forced me to silence when my voice must be heard, and they never will. I've asked myself, my presentation in Manley Bay, when I refrained from joining out the political handbook, as I previously used to do, what is it that caused some persons to be so upset? Was it that I had mentioned that at a time when it was not required by law, I made my returns to the Integrity Commission public? I started to find my purpose safe. And you will sleep without windows and doors. And I said, nobody in Jamaica can feel safe in the present situation. Who can question that? I said not only are the levels of crime high, intolerably high, but the ferocity of those crimes is without precedent. And you only have to think of what has taken place in Clarendon, both in the hills and on the plains. Crime can't be a political football. And I said then, and I repeat today, we are encouraged somewhat that there's a drop this year, but we have to go much further. I would have thought that the response to that statement would be to ask, how do we get total national unity to fight the monster of crime? How do we make sure that the entire nation gives support to the security forces and the agencies in the relentless fight? Because that is absolutely necessary. I said our roads are in a state of dilapidation, of disrepair never seen before. And for a boy who comes from a country, I said not even in the days of pure rock stone roads. I asked what has happened to the road maintenance fund that we did. I have said we did highways and we know how to build them. Look at the new highway to St. Thomas. One person who has some knowledge of the law in attacking me asked, how is it that in my time we never completed our advanced constitutional reform? And I remember when I started to practice, and I went across the Norman Manley's chambers, taking his big and gun out of locker room number 1. He said to me, refrain from asking a witness a question if the answers will destroy your case. How does that apply? I'm going to say what we did. Before Michael departed, he had started the process which allowed me in May of 1992 to set up a constitutional commission charged with revision of the Constitution, chaired by the Honorable Mr. Justice Sewell Carter of blessed memory. First thing, if we're going to do national consultations to don't ask an activist politician to lead the process.
Yes.
They went all around the island, genuine consultations. They made recommendations. The Jamaica Labour Party did not sign the report. The work was completed, chaired by Dr. Lloyd Manley. When that was done, I set up a parliamentary committee chaired by the Honorable David Corr. They took it way down the line towards the table. After this process, which has just ended, any changes they have made are in one direction and one direction only. They want to vest more power in the executive arm. They want to vest more power in the Prime Minister. They want to enable certain amendments to proceed without two-thirds majority in both houses. I don't have to say anything here about the lunacy of leaving the King's Crown but remaining in the King's Court. The court will decide in an appropriate motion what are the consequences of your having left, which would be regarded as detrimental to the interests of the country in which the Privy Council decided. I said that I would never, ever agree to the head of state being chosen in a manner which makes that person beholden to a simple majority vote. No. But the person who asked the question or posed the problem didn't know, because he wasn't the leader at the time. We were ready to go when, after the 1997 elections, coming up to 2002, there was one outstanding matter, and that is whether it was two-thirds of both houses voting separately or two-thirds of everybody voting. In the committee, we proposed two-thirds of everybody voting together. But it didn't take me long when it came back to me to say that couldn't spin. I have always operated on a simple principle. Any law you are going to pass, think about how you would react to it in opposition. And if you find it repugnant, then you cannot expect the opposition to agree to it, or you should not. And these people are operating as though they are going to be in government in perpetuity. We are a democratic party. When we wanted to move from an executive president to a ceremonial plus president, I have to come to annual conference and ask the delegates permission to make that move. The search for national consensus must be the foundation of constitutional reform, not partisan advantage. There's one thing, or one of the things I learned sitting at the feet of Norman Manley. Much as any leader seeks political power, one must always love Jamaica more.
Amen. Bless up everybody upon the live, like and share.
There are many people who are upset to this day with certain decisions that Norman Manley took, but those decisions were all in the interest of the nation, not confined to the interests of our party which he led. One of the reasons why we moved toward the ceremonial plus president is our experience in the 1980s. And particularly when we saw the prospect that this country was going to break into along political lines. And it is to their everlasting credit that both Michael Manley and Edward Sciarra accepted that we had to pull back from over the brink. As a consequence, they set up a committee, and I can share with you the personal animosity between the two leaders was so high that the only way they could find a solution was to ask Mr. Shearer on one side and me on the other side to lead the two delegations, of course reporting to the two leaders. And we set up what was then the Electoral Advisory Committee, which has morphed into the Electoral Commission. We want entrenched in the new constitution. But if you want to really understand how well that commission has performed, think back to 2016, when the results came out 32 to 31. And within a few days of those results, a new government was sworn into power, and she never got enough credit for this. Portia Simpson Miller was seated on the platform. So now, I am alarmed when unilaterally, they take the decision to move the office of the public defender, public ombudsman, the political ombudsman into the Electoral Commission. First of all, it's a conflict of interest.
Amen. Like and share, everybody. Thanks for joining. Big up yourself, Pat W. Chelsea. All moderators, big up.
The body which is responsible for ensuring free and fair elections into a situation where they have to be taking a position that involves differences between both sides. That's my first point. But my second point, and more significantly, what gives me such alarm is that the moment one side decides to change the Electoral Commission's powers without consultation, you are opening the door. And I'm going to share something with you which I wrote, which I have spoken about before, but just to get you to understand why I'm concerned. When we were coming up to the 1993 elections, the AAC at the time was asked permission, said that they were recommending an external mission to observe elections. And when we considered it in cabinet, first of all, it was not within their legal remit. We considered it in the cabinet, and we decided no, we weren't going to allow it. And then again, I thought a little bit more. People a lot of time misunderstanding. When I speak, I try to speak clearly, and I don't want to have to withdraw it. And I've always learned, engage the pain before you engage the more.
So true.
I said, although it is not within their remit, if I refuse their unanimous recommendation, the next time they make a recommendation, it's just say I might refuse it. Therefore, I go along with their recommendation. I have to go back to my cabinet, some of them are here, and I have to persuade them. And in the end, I have to say to them, give me this one. And they agree. Consequence, Carter Commission came, it said, certified that elections were free and fair, but it also pointed to some weaknesses. One of which was that when you had polling stations that were voted on, it did not reflect the will of the whole constituency. We wanted to have one person, one vote. So we looked at it and we devised the creation of somebody on the Electoral Commission. We entrusted them with the power when such a thing arises to declare those polling stations null and void and to have it over with. And I wonder if the present incumbent in West Central St. Andrew realized that he would be nowhere but for that introduction. And we had to do it not once, but twice. Now, you see what is already brewing between the Electoral Commission and the government. And all I would say is this. In 1967, I really learned from the jail what gerrymandering was. But I never knew that you could gerrymander a whole country. And again, all I would say, because I don't want to give any clue to anybody, there are some constitutional issues which will arise. And I missed the day when I could put on my gown and just see you. Today, March the 6th, was deliberately chosen. It is 28 years since the passing of the great Michael Manley. No one since the grant of universal adult suffrage has done more than he did during what I call an irreversible era of social transformation. Time and space will not allow me to go into the details of his achievements. As I said elsewhere, Sparrow Martin in the message says it best. But especially for the benefit of those who are too young to know, it is necessary for me to highlight a few of the giant steps we took during the 1970s to make every man, woman, or child smile. Let's think of it. Michael's passion was the building of a just society, one designed to ensure that every man, woman, and child would have an equal chance in life. We start with the Status of Children Act, which we refer to in common talk, the bastard again, that provided equality for children in the sight of God, of man, and of the law. That dealt with rights of children born out of wedlock when their parents pass. He introduced maternity leave with pay, equal pay for women.
Yes.
Perhaps one of the most outstanding in English common law jurisprudence was the abolition of the Master and Servant Act. Until then, and in the days of slavery, employees were regarded as the property of their masters. The very term is repugnant. The introduction of the Labor Relations and Industrial Disputes Act, the right to a job is property, which entitles the person to reinstatement. I hear whispers in some quarters about removing redundant payments. And I say simply, don't anybody dare to go there. I'm going to that the People's National Party has already pledged to make the legislative changes to afford full protection in the service industries, whether it be tourism, security guards, BPO workers, and the whole range of people who are working basically on contracts and can be terminated at will without any benefits. I can't resist the temptation to say, do them with drama. The liberating power of the literacy cannot be exaggerated. Of the 2003 scholarships, which Norman Manley did, which I contend is one Michael went further to the tertiary level. And I say simply, no matter what they say, the legacy of Michael Norman Manley will be cherished in perpetuity. And forever shall be. No, I come to set the record straight. And I want to talk about the era from 18 to 89. We now have had access to the documents in Washington which establish beyond doubt the role of the CIA what triggered the presidential authorization. We know who were the principal contacts in the Jamaica Labour Party. We know the local groups and corporate entities that became the agents and tools for the overthrow with that massive defeat that we suffered 51 to 9. After that, and some of you are present, the People's National Party, as it always does, has some introspection. Not about our mission, not about our purpose, but about the methods by which we fulfill the sacred mission of the People's National Party. And that had to be done in light of the dramatic changes in the international environment, and it was soon to be followed by the disappearance of a bipolar world. The winds of globalization and the market economy had reached hurricane category 5 strength. The PNP had to rethink the role of the state in economic development while maintaining its steadfast commitment to providing equal opportunity and to secure justice for all. You remember that? See, I was the first foreign visit to Jamaica. Reagan vowed to make Jamaica a model of success for capitalism and ideological conservative alliances. Instead of the David Rockefeller group, they purchased tons and tons of bauxite and alumina for stockpiling. Between 81 to 88, Jamaica borrowed $2.1 billion from the IMF, the World Bank, the IDB. All those loans from the multilateral agencies were concessionary, but they came with harsh conditionalities. We who were living in those times witnessed the social programs being decimated. And the worst sufferers were, of course, the poor and the marginalized. The national growth of 0.9%, which they attained for the decade of the 80s, was not due to any new investment projects. It was attributable to low oil prices in 1986 and beyond. Meanwhile, the national debt was soaring enormously. These people boast about economic management. Took over when the debt to GDP ratio was 63% in 1980. By 1989, it had ballooned to 262%.
Remind them, PJ.
They dismantled local government cemeteries, local government services, and they left you only to deal with cemeteries and markets. Several hospitals were closed or downgraded. At one time, our debt to the national reserves had fallen precipitously to an all-time low, minus 803 billion. Despite this, they failed 4 IMF tests and used a statement from our then General Secretary as a pretext to call the August elections in 1983, making a solid commitment not to hold any elections before there was a new electoral voters list. When we came to office in 1989, we inherited an bilateral agreement, a World Bank structural adjustment loan, an IDB loan, all of which were dictated according to the gospel of the Washington Consensus. We had no trade preferences any longer for our primary commodities, and we were unable to protect domestic markets by tariffs, and no So there was an urgent need for deep reform of the Jamaican economy and its productive base in order for us to compete in the global marketplace. When Michael Manley was leading, you remember he made an address for the nation. And he said this: the leadership Congress will not affect the market economy path, nor our commitment to tourism. The programs of commitment of empowerment, our commitment to regional integration will not change. For the choices will be between persons who are meeting all the policies which now guide the actions of the government. I outlined the background to set the record straight and smash the deliberate plots to distort the truth by those who would prefer us to forget. I was. They want to perpetrate a myth that they were geniuses at managing the economy
Lies.
and became the massacre. They won't tell you that Bank of Jamaica and persons buying up US dollars on the illicit market. And notice I said illicit. It was done to cover their bogus auction system of foreign exchange. They don't want to remind you that they have presold bauxite and aluminum, and also future revenues from cable and wireless. So we have no revenues to come from these sources. Yes. Julian, you are doing it again. And you are going to find that nothing is coming to you from the Norman Manley Airport. But they claim to be financial results. Yes. Those you alone. Yes. As we know, I finished my first term, and Portia finished mine. So we're dealing with 4 terms together. It's time to set the record straight and tell the story of what we actually accomplished.
Yes.
And I have already considered of it. It is time to state clearly, very critical, what is the difference the PNP has always made in order to improve the lot and conditions of our Jamaican people. Lest we forget, we are the People's Party. We put people first.
Yes.
Always. Remember when? Before we proceed any further, how many people remember that period in the 80s when the oil tankers in the harbor would not offload the fuel until they arrived? How many people remember the gas lines that were stretching for miles in the hot sun? Do you remember about when you wanted to purchase a new vehicle? Yes. You put it in the up. You paid money. When the car arrives, somebody give them a final price. Yes. And they give you back your money without interest.
Criminals.
men remember me, not touch your boy. Remember the days of the call boxes? To make phone calls in rural Jamaica? When you had to go to the street corner? Yes, I like them. We saw our cars in 1989 as having to transform a weak and unstable economy and lay the foundations for sustained growth and development. The man that they have vilified so much, the Minister of Finance, Omar Davis, he managed the macroeconomic indicators so well that we passed 12 IMF tests. And as a result of that, by 1995, I was able to say to the IMF, I'm coming now to an issue that is very much alive today. And it is about financial management. All that we accomplished was done at the same time that we had to protect 1.5 million deposit accounts and 570,000 insurance policy holders out of our own resources. Let the record show that one of them lost a single dollar. I'm not surprised that there was no final report about FINSA. Yes! Because the commissioners could not find what they were sent in to look for. And indeed, the full story had been told in Parliament and was in testimony before the commissioners. When that happened, the multilateral financial institution said to us, yes, we persuaded you to open the system and to grant license because we wanted to have competition in the financial markets. But when they failed, they said to us, this is what a market economy means. They took the risk. Let them pay the price. Drive it to the wall. As a responsible government, we had to look at questions of trust and confidence. For local depositors, what would it mean to Jamaicans overseas that were sending money back home? We had to look what would be social consequences of a meltdown. And I think some of you will remember that special conference that I summoned at National Review. And there is a hard-working farmer, an honest man, firm Christian believer. I know him for a very long time. Unlike some, he come to conference, but he don't talk. And I was on the platform, and when I saw Eric Thompson going to the night. I said, my God, what is he going to say? How many remember what he said? He said, come in here, made a business with the bank team. All the bank down a Falmouth, a figure bank. Because you never give them license, they could get my money. I'm a hard working man as usual. Anytime he got down there, and he asked for my money, and we can't get it, they are going to go back to the town. And the next worker was very sharp. And I'm going to sharpen my cutlass. And blood is going to flow like a river down the Manley. I don't for the thing that was Sunday. Friday I'm passing through Falmouth and flagged it up. And he said not one word about this conference presentation. He was complaining to me that bull not pulling him away. Now, after that experience, we put in place the Jamaica Deposit Insurance Company to protect small and medium-sized depositors and funds. We also created the Financial Services Securities Commission to regulate institutions that deal with insurance, pensions, and securities in order that investors and depositors would be alerted in advance of any failure and therefore spared any repeat. Now, we come to business. And I ask, how could any government, in their right senses, possibly think that the failure of a licensed institution to retain 200 investors whose money has vanished could become an issue of national secrecy? It is a matter which is of concern to the entire nation and our standing in the world. And for them to have thought so, borders and lunacy, when one of the members is a living legend. I want to be very clear. Nobody is singling out gold for any special treatment. He has asked for it, and I don't think he expects it. But the widows, the pensioners, and all the persons who were wronged have a compelling interest in finding out how the money goes. Usain Bolt is a loyal Jamaican who is an international icon. He's not going to use the same image or rhetoric as his parishioner, Mr. Thompson from North Carolina. But the fact is, even if he kept quiet about it, there is an interest because you have some publications that track the income and the worth of stars and musical stars. So they are the part of the story. And when they see a certain gift in their home, they're going to take notice of it. So it is just sheer stupidity for them to pretend that this thing can happen and the opposition is not going to say anything about it. We're not creating any partisan issue out of it. This is a national issue. My profession and disposition, I don't like to engage in rumor, speculation, or gossip. I know there is a legal presumption of innocence to which all accused are entitled. If anyone thinks that whatever Ms. Anton is accused of, if in fact she did anything, could be done by her alone, but still believe that the word is not. Justice demands that the thief or thieves be found. And receivers of the stolen money, if any, end up where those who have been convicted by a court of competent jurisdiction go. They are criminals belong. Those money was not lost. It was stolen. We must not prejudice the right of fair trial of any accused. But there are issues which, according to our constitutional entitlement of free speech, demand ventilation and not a muzzle. In 1998, Mr. Eric Thompson would have had no legal recourse for a failure of his bar. But now, there's the FSC. Mr. Gold has very competent lawyers. I do not intend or need to offer them legal advice. But what I would say is, if they have not already done so, the FSC had better pad up a top-class legal team. Because the question is going to arise. Has there been a breach of its statutory duties? And they certainly expose themselves to civil action in our courts by any of the or all of the 200 investors whose money has disappeared. I want to move to an area which demonstrates the fundamental difference between our two political parties. The PNP has always endorsed the critical value of strong economic indicators. Let no one tell you otherwise. But the PNP does not believe macroeconomic stability is an end in itself. We recognize It is a vital foundation upon which to build sustained economic growth and lasting social progress. Plainly put, we don't only want a good report card for the multilateral financial institutions, but more so, we want the money and the performance measures to be used as the key to ensuring development in order to accentuate the full release of our human potential and to build a satisfying quality of life for Jamaican people. Manley in 1930 espoused the party's commitment to place an emphasis on the masses who were poor, weak, and vulnerable. That has endured throughout the ages as a priority for all PFP administrations. The party's record of social intervention throughout all its terms in government, from Norman Manley to Portia Simpson is well documented. Our policy initiatives in the social sector have been consistently based on rigorous analysis that underpin our policies and programs. Setting the record straight, in the 90s, we introduced a poverty index, which allowed annual tracking and the impact of cost increases on the entire population, and particularly on the lowest income groups. That was the basis for the introduction of the National Poverty Eradication Program. It helped us to identify selected geographical areas, not based on political support, but on the basis of needs, which deserve special interventions in terms of providing physical and social infrastructure. Let the record show we dramatically reduced the poverty line, which was at 28.4% in 1990 to 9.9% in 2010. It is clear that the focus that we place on the poverty index no longer exists. Why do I say so? Despite the macroeconomic statistics, so many of our families, workers, and those in menial services are today demoralized and discontented. In the last 8 years, we are falling further and further behind and we the 2030 millennium goals. The party introduced a human resource development program because we believe that the country must invest heavily in human capital if we are to make a qualitative improvement of our daily lives. We believe in shared prosperity, not confined to a special few, but shared equitably. And hence, we shifted focus from poverty alleviation as a welfare benefit to poverty alleviation as a means of providing human justice. Hence, a social safety net, no longer food stamps and handouts. We sought to alleviate poverty by building capacities for families below the base income line, elderly, disabled, youth at risk. Accurate energy was made by Mr. God. For us, this was a sharp attack on the runs of poverty and inequality. Health. We don't believe in gimmickry. Tell them about a free health system that has people waiting for days and days and days. It is on the verge of collapse. Let me refresh your memories. We upgraded and refurbished KPH, Manley, St. Anne's Bay, Cornwall Regional, Spanish Town, Boston and Children. The new Mayfair Hospital that we built is the only new hospital built over the last 50 years. We introduced drugs for the elderly. And I will just say this one simply. I heard him asking what would have happened if we had the COVID epidemic and the PNP was in power. And I asked them the question, how would they have survived COVID if it were not for the National Health Fund? And put it simply, very, very simply, the National Health Fund for health is what the National Housing Trust was intended to be. By this time waiting, you have to prepare your plans for the next step to move from a national health fund to a national health system. When it comes to education, everybody knows that is PNP territory. It should be surprising because teachers were involved in the concept of the PNP. That is how our Phoenix Standard Code came to be a founding member that drew up the Constitution for the People's National Party. I am not into going to any extensive presentation. I've been begging Damien on education. I said, for God's sake, take education out to the people. Let us bring back the People's Forum. We have a situation where there's a report presented, a good report, but the stakeholders have no involvement in what it contains. We believe that education is a key driver of social and economic transformation. And it is more important for technological innovation to build a knowledge society, which is where we are seeking to go. passing, remember, we reopened the vocational training centers that had been closed. We expanded hard to embrace the national training agencies. And this is a report from the World Bank. The quintile of tertiary students in Jamaica moved from 6.5% in 1991 to 19.5% by 2004. When I took office, we had one university. When Portia left office in 2007, we had 6. I'm almost embarrassed to mention a comparison in the field of housing. When we completed Greater Portmore in 1995, we had 10,850 houses for that year. That is more houses than they built in any 4 of their years in office. We built 150,000 houses. Where are they in fulfilling their promise to build less than half of that, 70,000? We provided 58,000 families with land titles under Operation Pride. They have handed over 280 social housing units in 7 years. That makes a good photo up. But it will take an eternity to satisfy the demand. To stimulate growth, we created entities that generate economic activity, which expand business enterprises and provide employment. In 2005, we attracted $800 million of investment, mainly in construction, mining, and agro-processing. We built the physical infrastructure, the airport in Montego Bay, the North Coast Highway, water supplies, reliable energy to support hotel development as well. 2 of our local chains grew Sandals, super clubs. We did not forget the small hoteliers. Then there was the Spanish investment. And believe me, it's difficult for me to stay in the pavilion and watch when they talk as though they are responsible. It is a myth. I don't want to use any imagery from a former leader on their side or to treat lies. But all I would ask them to do, give credit